another edition of the Contractor's Secret Weapon weekly podcast with your hosts, Dave Negri. This program is dedicated to helping contractors, remodelers, painters, roofers, roof cleaners, and business owners in the construction industry gain an unfair advantage over the competition. This program supplies you with information that the competition doesn't even know exists. This session brought to you by ContractorsSecretWeapon.com.
Before we get into the conversation with you, I just want to do a shout out to our sponsors who help promote Contractor's Secret Weapon and just some of the things that they have in store for you, our listeners. Hey, is your phone ringing enough? Do you want it to ring more with highly motivated and qualified buyers that contact you, the contractor, directly? No more waiting for the phone to ring. Just answer that phone. Best Home Services leads are dedicated to making your phone ring with motivated buyers that call you directly. There's no obligation to talk with them. Just go to ContractorsSecretWeapon.com/money. Fill out the form to secure your discount on the setup fee. Do it today. This special will not last forever. Check them out at ContractorsSecretWeapon.com/money.
Running a small business is no easy task, and I should know because I had a service company for almost 10 years. I am the founder of a software called RadiusBomb, and it's unbelievable. And for all the listeners of Contractor's Secret Weapon, we have a special offer for you to check out. If you want to send hyper-targeted, laser-focused, super personalized postcards to your exact prospects using a map while sitting in your underwear, then go to ContractorsSecretWeapon.com/RadiusBomb, and we'll give you your first 100 postcards for free. Just go to ContractorsSecretWeapon.com/RadiusBomb.
Hey, this is Dave Negri with Contractor's Secret Weapon. Today, I got a very unique guest. I mean, he's really not unique, but he's a real nice guy. His name is Gerald J. Leonard, and he understands the challenges that business owners face as they struggle with culture confusion. Too many number one priorities, lacking consciousness among key leaders, and alignment of their mission, vision, and values. He's an international expert in the topic of developing a culture that works, strategy implementation, the project portfolio management, also professional basis, and he combines everything together, which is cool. He's the author of Culture is the Base, 7 Principles for Developing a Culture That Works, and he has a new upcoming book coming up, Symphonic Culture, Unify, Strategize, Execute Collectively for Optimum Results. And we all want optimum results. So, Gerald, thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate being on the show here.
Cool. This is going to be fun. I think that, for a lot of people, we hear the word culture, but can you just give a definition of what we hear all the time, but what really is it?
Well, culture is the intangible and almost emotional connection that people have within a company or a family or an organization. It's basically the values and the vision and the values of that particular company lived out on a day-to-day basis. It's the behavior of the company. I think of culture as the foundational, especially as a bass player. If you think of great music, which has great bass lines, culture is like that bass line. It holds things together. It creates a framework of our values and thoughts, and it's like a unique invisible bond that holds people together when they have similar cultures. And obviously, if they have very different cultures, it can kind of propel people away from each other. Culture influences our perspective, and it also influences the character of the organization.
Cool. So every business has a culture, and some are by default, and some are worked at.
Exactly. Every business, every organization, every family, even every individual has created and has some form of a culture of how they're living. And again, it really boils down to their overall vision for their life, but then it's the values that they espouse and the values that they live out, and it's their behavior which creates this culture. And it can be a culture that is pleasant, exciting, fun, serving, helpful, or it can be one that's very toxic. So, but everyone has one, and sometimes we're not sure how we develop them. And if you're not sure how you develop them, then you have one by default. And that's kind of the worst way to have one. You want to have one that you intentionally think about and develop.
Yeah, especially if you have a business that you want to grow, or you have an organization that you want to grow.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be very pertinent, especially if you're a business owner and for some reason you don't have the repeat business that you'd like, or you can't keep good help the way you feel that your industry should be able to. This would probably reflect back on your culture and what's going on within you, isn't it?
Exactly. In fact, I had a stat that says 41% of customers are loyal to a brand or a company because of the consistently notice the positive attitude of their employees. In other words, they're loyal to the company because of the culture of the company, but yet 68% of that of employees or customers will defect from a company because of a negative culture. And so if we have a negative or toxic culture, it can propel up to 60 to 70% of our customers. But if we have a positive one, it's going to draw them in and basically create brand loyal ambassadors for our company. Wow,
that's really profound when you really think about it, because a lot of times I would think that you really don't think about things like this. You think, well, I lost another customer, but it's not I lost another customer, but what is the underlying reason I lost the customer?
Exactly. And more likely it's because of the culture and the emotional experience. And today, it's really interesting. Today, we're at a place where everyone wants to experience. They want to come into a store and they want to experience the store. They want to experience the culture. And if what they're experiencing isn't the positive servitude mindset that they're looking for, or that feel good that they're looking for, they will tend to go elsewhere where they may even be paying higher prices. But if they're getting that cultural experience that they're looking for, they will stay.
So that's an interesting thought that you just are not as an actual interesting reality that you just presented, was that customers are actually looking for the experience.
Right.
And so if you don't have it built in to the way you operate your culture, then the chances of you even getting them, or you're actually never going to get them again, but the chances of them picking it up is going to diminish the amount of business that you're going to actually get.
Exactly. And in my research, here was something else that I found that I thought was really interesting when you think about that particular stat or that thought around culture, is that 90% of business leaders believe they have an engaging strategy and culture, but only 25% actually have one in place.
Wow. That's kind of interesting, and 20% actual.
Exactly.
Wow, that's like, well, it's what is it? The emperor has no clothes.
Right. We're not aware of what's really going on.
Yeah.
Because we have a false assumption of what we are experiencing with our inner circle. But when we step out, all the great companies, the leaders are always out in the store, always out meeting the clients, always out in the field. Especially with construction companies, especially with management by walking around, they're out there, so they have a feel for what the culture is like. If they're not out there and they're only insulated around a certain group of people, they then get a false assumption of what the culture is like within their company, and yet that's not the reality of what's being faced out in the market and what their customers are experiencing.
Well, because I know personally myself, especially in hotel chains,
yes.
I know there are some great ones. And matter of fact, one day I was sitting down, I think it was at breakfast, and we own a timeshare, and I had this discussion with the manager about their culture and how good it was and how engaging, all their employees were, and then there was another one. Actually, I had to write. I wrote a letter to the manager of the restaurant because I was at a place for like 3 days, and every day I got this. I asked for the same waiter, and after the first day, he knew my name, he knew what we drank, and he just brought it over. Didn't even ask if we wanted it, and I'm going, wow, that's a wow factor, that's going to keep me coming back. And not only that, it was even when because we were at a function, and everyone at the function, all of the waiters and waitresses who weren't getting any tips or anything, all the service staff, everyone was engaging. Is there something else I could get you? If you walked in and you had that puzzled look on your face, what can I help you with? Where can I point you in the right direction? It was the culture.
Yes, and if you notice, sometimes when you find yourself in that situation, and you have that puzzled look when you walk in the door, and what I found is I've walked into 2 different types of stores. You walk in with a puzzled look, and the employee comes and says, "How can I help you? What are you looking for?" You tell them, and they say, "Okay, well, it's over there," and they point to aisle 5, and then they go back to doing what they're doing. And they basically left you to go find aisle 5 and look for whatever you're looking for.
Right.
But then you also have the ones that says, "Oh, it's aisle 5." They stop what they're doing. They start walking towards aisle 5, and they say, "It's right over here. Here it is, right here. Is this the one you're looking for, or are you looking for this other one?" And they basically walk you and make sure that you get to where you're trying to go to. And I know I tend to frequent those stores where the employee is willing to take the extra time and walk me to where what I'm looking for, and make sure that I've picked up what I'm actually looking for, and not just kind of left me out there trying to figure it out by myself.
Well, there's so many underlying things there. It's like, here's someone who needs help. I'm going to help them. I'm going to make them feel like they're important. We really want their business, and we want to keep them coming back. And really, those are the things that should be going through in every business owner's mind, and should actually, that's how he should treat or train, not treat, but how he should train all his employees to want those same things. But exactly. but not only train them, but believe in himself.
Exactly, because if the leader's not living it, then there's no one else to follow or to look to for an example. All the great companies, the leader, the person who's established that company or started it, they're living that life that they are calling everybody else to live, and they're setting the example so that they're not only saying what they're saying, but they're giving their staff, the customer and their employees, a visual and an example that they can imitate.
Wow. In your you're a professional, well, a musician also.
Yes.
And I see that you word picture or correlate music to creating the culture.
Right, I do. And an interesting part about that, and why I did that, is I've been playing bass for, let's say, 40 years. And so I got a little mileage on me.
Yeah.
But I've been a business consultant for 20 plus years. And in working in those 2 worlds, what I started noticing is when I would perform with an orchestra or a band or play a show, if I'm working with really good musicians that are not just focused on, hey, I can play all my notes right, but I'm really trying to create a performance or an experience for the audience that they're going to remember and make the performance something that they are going to want to come back to time and time again. The rehearsals, the working together, it was a total different experience. Even if I didn't know the musicians when I first started that particular gig, if you will, by the time that show is over, we've become best friends. We're staying in touch with each other because there's this emotional connection that's made, but we're also there to support and help each other. And there's a standard and there's a vision of what we're trying to accomplish. And then there's a set of standards or values that we're all going to live by as we're performing this. But the focus is outward on the customer, I have a friend, our colleague, named Bruce Trickell. He talks a lot. He's on talks a lot on MSNBC or CNN, and he has a book out called "It's All About Them," and it really that's what it's all about. When building a culture, it's all about them. And what I started noticing is, as I got more into consulting, I started noticing that contracts and projects that went really well had the same emotional connection that great performances had. And as I started coming up with this idea, I actually came up with the idea through going through some workshops, and I joined the National Speakers Association because I was starting to speak a lot for Microsoft and the Project Management Institute and others around this topic of project management and portfolio management. And I've done work with pharmaceuticals, but I've also done work with construction companies and large organizations of different types. And what I started noticing is that when the leader of that particular project or engagement had a clear vision and had a set of values that they lived by and how they wanted the project to go, that everyone got on the same page, engaged, and it really took on the concept of a performance, that we were delivering this product or service, but at the end of the day, we were thinking about what do we want the end customer, the person who's going to use this, the secretary, the staff member, what do we want them to experience and feel? And so I realized that a lot of the same concepts that musicians experience, that business consultants and businesses experience when it's going well. And in the same way, when it's not going well, if you don't have a good group of musicians and it's not a great performance, it's the same emotional connection, it's the same principles that happen where there's not a clear vision, there's not a clear set of values of how we're going to operate. It's hard to get buy-in. And so a lot of those 7 principles that I talk about in the book are really those core things that after doing some research as well, that I discovered are the 7 core things that are really needed to build a great culture, regardless of what industry you're in.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's because we all, we just all have the same thing when it comes to those, like you were saying, those 7 key principles that you came across. But I thought a couple of interesting things. There's three keys that you mentioned. Was the leader had a clear vision, he had a set of values, and he was looking that as the end results was a great experience for them, for whoever it is. It could be the customer, it could be, the employee, whatever it is. It's a great, they want to transition to a great experience or user experience.
Right, and one of the ways to get that great experience is what I call buy-in. It's getting everyone to buy in, but buy-in is you have to think of it as a team sport. We're at the point now. I'm big into football. That's a sport I love to watch. And so the regular season now is over, and now we're into the playoffs. And every game, now the real season starts, because every game is you win or go home.
Yeah.
Right? And so the 2 teams that will go to the Super Bowl are the 2 teams that have the greatest buy-in among everyone on the team, regardless of what role they play.
Yeah. Yeah, because now when you get to the end, it's all about playing in harmony.
Right. It's all about playing in harmony. And so whether you are the, quote unquote star of the team, your focus is, it doesn't matter if you look good and you're the star of the team. If everyone's not there with you, you're still not going to win, because there's no time in history that one person stood up and say, "Hey, I won the Lombardi Trophy by myself." Right. It's always a team effort, even if the guys are on the bench or they're the practice team or they're the traveling team. Everyone has to be engaged. Everyone has to be bought in and behind the goal of what they're trying to accomplish.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let me ask you this. This is for let's say that someone who has I'm going to be nice about this, has a default culture. Okay. what would be some key learnings or some disciplines, however you want to put it, that might get him onto a clear vision or a clear track of where maybe they should go?
Yeah, okay, so if you have a company or organization that has, like you said, a default vision, they realize that, our culture is not what we want it to be, then I think they have to look at those three things that we just talked about. They have to step back and they have to visualize and go, what do we want our culture to be? And one way to do that is just to ask your customers, or your clients, why did you hire me? What do you like about working with us? And what don't you like about working with us? And once you talk to a number of your customers and you ask them to be honest, they're going to tell you. They're going to say, we hired you because your people do good work. We don't like these things, but you do these other things so well, we're willing to overlook them. But if you did those even better, you'd have our business without even questioning it. So you can ask your customer and your employees, what is it that you like about working with us or working with me? What is it that you don't like? What should we start doing, stop doing, and continue to do? And once you have that clear vision, again, of where you're trying to go and what is going to delight your customer on their journey for meeting their needs, then you have to say, well, what are the core values that are going to help us implement that into our system? Whether it's integrity, whether it's customer service first, whether it's excellence in our craft, certifications, whatever that core, those values are, then the leaders have to say, okay, if these are the core values that our customers admire, then we're going to live them, and we're going to call everyone on our team to live them. And that's where, at times, it does call for some challenging times where you may have some people on your team that you realize don't want to live according to the values. And that's where you have to part ways. And even in most really good companies will use those core values as their criteria for hiring.
Yeah,
they'll use those core criteria for making critical business decisions on where they're going to invest their money, where they're not going to invest. And then once they have that clear vision, that critical set of core values and behaviors that they're going to live by, then they got to make sure that everyone is bought into them. And one of the best ways to get people to buy into your vision and your values is they need to understand the backstory. Like, how did we get to this point that this is our new vision and this is our values? It could be, how you grew up or how you were raised. It could be for the owner of the company. It could be they stumbled and they ran into these problems and they had a customer that they, had to help, or they were going to have to, if they didn't win that business, they were going to have to close the doors. So they made all these changes and the customers bought into it and it turned their company around. And so now they have this story of what it took to transform the business to become. And so now people understand, because people love stories. When we hear a great story, we visualize it. That's why we have these motor neurons. And we hear a great story, we visualize what we're hearing, and we can see it in action, and we can then, kind of partake in it. And stories have a way of touching our head, our heart, and our hands. And it really pulls us in. And so having a great set of stories. And then again, once you have those four things with the stories, then you can start layering some of the tactical things like best practices, really work on your environment. And then with all that being in place, you can really, as a company or organization, begin to execute and move the ball forward in your company in a way that you couldn't before, because you've actually aligned everything up that needs to be aligned to really make a difference.
So, I'm going to go out on a limb here. No, I'm not really. But as you're talking, I'm thinking about that, a good company culture, and of course, and that takes work to build, right, is a anchor for a long-term sustainable business.
It is. It really is. And if you think of companies like Zappos or Amazon or Nordstrom. All of those companies have great culture. GE, Apple, and you think, what companies have been around for a long, long time and are really doing great, Geico and the way they do their commercials. Southwest Airlines is another one.
Yeah.
And you can see it in how they handle things. The opposite end of that is when you have a company, and I won't go into different company names because they're in the news all the time.
Right.
But it's when the leaders are doing things that are not ethical or they're not in line with where the company's at. And then you find out that there's harassment, that there's bribing, that there's all different types of unethical activity. And pretty soon the customers start getting involved in that unethical behavior, or they're being brutalized by that unethical behavior. And they're going to look and go, well, wait a minute, I'm paying you for the service and you're brutalizing me. I'm going to pick my ball up and go someplace else.
Yeah, and it's happening all the time, and it's amazing on how, ultimately, you have a huge company that will virtually shut down overnight because of everything catches up to them.
Exactly.
Amazing. It's amazing. So it's just, it's easy, but it's not, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Right.
But it does take work. And if you want to be, I guess, sustainable in the marketplace, no matter what type of business you are, then you really should take a look at what drives you, get a clear vision. What are your values, and what do you want your marketplace to experience from you? But like you said, all these great companies, and so, okay, this goes back to the hiring thing. If you hire people because they fit into your culture, you can ultimately train them to do whatever needs to be done. But you can't train, it's harder to train someone culture than it is technology or a job skill, isn't it?
Exactly. So if you get someone who has obviously they have to have the aptitude, right? The capability or the capacity to develop those skills, and they have to be a learner, someone who can transform. But if they understand the vision, the values, they're willing to buy in, they get the story, they bought into it, then you think about places like McDonald's, you think of the military, you think of GE. They've taken high school kids or young adults and put them in very difficult situations, especially in the U.S. military. But yet, because they have best practices that are simplified and baked into the process, they're able to teach them to, run multi-billion or trillion-dollar machines, military equipment that others would not be able to, but because they were able to, bring someone in, onboard someone who has that buy-in and skill set, understanding, and yet they simplified the best practices and train them on them, they're able to execute at a high level.
That's amazing. So it actually, by taking the time to build a culture, it actually simplifies the running of your business.
Exactly. Because then when you're building out your practices, you want to simplify your practices that, hey, if I can bring in a high school student and have them make my burgers and shakes consistently in the same format and same fashion that an executive or whoever that's been there for 20 years can do them, then I've really streamlined my practice. Because best practices doesn't mean it has to be complicated or sophisticated. Most best practices are just really simple checklists that will require someone to get into that routine of, hey, if I follow the bouncing ball and do something consistently, I'm going to get the same consistent result. And it reduces the red tape and it streamlines the process.
Wow.
And it's really baked in to the process. So, and those best practices are baked in such a way that they enhance or they reinforce the values and the vision and the stories and the buy-in of where the company is trying to go.
It's amazing on how this is a key element that I think a lot of business owners miss.
Right. And it's also with the environment, the whether the environment is the physical environment, like the workspace, or, in our day with the virtual workspace, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone or a laptop, if you have software that reinforces what you're trying to get across, or if your work environment reinforces, or your reward system reinforces the values you reward people for following through on the values of the company, you're creating this environment that, again, reinforces the best practices, which then reinforces the stories, the buy-in, the values, and your vision. And so then it's kind of like you have your entire military or your entire organization marching, if you will, in the same direction.
Wow. That's amazing. It really is when you really sit down and look at it and how it all ties it together. And yet, like you said, you take the military who have spent years forever developing their culture and their practices, and they can put anybody in there with the right mindset, right, to do the job. And that's the key is it's not hiring for the sake of hiring, but hiring for the sake of, will that person will they fit into what we have going already?
Exactly. And if you think about the different parts of the military, the more difficult the mission, or the more difficult the area, especially when you have to work in small groups like the tactical teams, the Green Berets, the Rangers, they're looking for people who can tough it out, but who will always have that mentality of, I understand the vision, I understand the values, and I'm bought in. Yeah,
the buy-in's really big.
It's amazing. Yeah. Because it's not until then can you create what I would call a cadence of accountability. There's a book out there called 4DX where it talks about this cadence of accountability, where organizations would have teams get together on a weekly basis, and they address the accountability in such a way that the teams hold each other accountable, or the individuals on the team hold each other accountable. So now it's not just the leader saying thou shall, it's the team saying, hey, we're all in this together, we're going to hold each other accountable. Again, think about the Super Bowl that's coming up here in about a month.
Right.
All these teams are going to, when they get out there in the field, they're going to hold each other accountable to play at their best, because if they don't, they're going home.
Yeah. There's no room for second place in a Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's cool. Hey, this has really been awesome. This is just a different take on culture. I love the way you explained it, and the way we got to talk about it. We're really running close to the end of time. Is there anything in the back of your mind that you wanted to get out that we didn't get out, that maybe for another minute or so, or how are you doing on that?
No, I just think that it's really important. In my new book, I add a couple of new elements to the cultural aspect, which I talk about positioning, and I'm also talking about just the focus on I think it's on stories and on the character of the overall company. But the positioning piece is how do people see you in their own mind? And if you remember a few months ago, or maybe a year ago, there was an airline that was on the news, and they were being taken to task because they were dragging a gentleman off the plane, and he was kind of bloody. And one of my favorite airlines, which is Southwest, came out with this commercial, or at least a banner, that said, "We beat our competition, not our customers."
Yeah, they think that. Yeah.
But that and you think about it, that fits their character, that fits their culture. It's funny.
It is. Everything they do is funny.
Exactly. But it's like, they're saying their idea is like, we really do consider our customers important, and so we're going to really focus on them. And in fact, we're not going to beat you. We're going to take care of you. And we're going to, we're not going to charge you for bags. We're going to have, transparency and everything that makes you fall in love with them and go, I don't want to fly anybody else except Southwest, because they're going to treat me right.
Yeah, I'm pretty much one of those. I'll pay even if it's a little extra. I'll go because I know that I'm going to get treated right and everything's going to be fine all the time. And they're funny. They really are. I mean, some of the stuff that comes out of there, you just going, they must be taking comedian classes or something.
I know, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a couple flights like that.
Yeah, I was sitting on one once, and the person says, "Okay, it's time for everyone to get up and get in line." And she goes, "The plane's getting ready to take off," and nobody moved. And she goes, "I'm not kidding. Everybody, get up, get in line. We're going. Let's go." But it's hilarious. This has really been awesome. How can our listeners connect with you?
Well, they can find me on my website at geraldjleonard.com, and they can also find my book, Culture is the Base, on Amazon. And that's Culture is the Base, 7 Principles to Developing a Culture That Works. And again, they can learn more about me at geraldjleonard.com.
Cool. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes. We'll put a link to your website, and we'll put a link to the Amazon in the book there too. So they can go to the show notes when we're done. I just want to thank you so much for really going over this topic, because I know it's really needed in the marketplace in every business. In every business, I don't think that we really understand the importance of what a culture can do for each one of our businesses.
Exactly.
Cool.
Well, Dave, it was a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks
for having me on.
All righty.
Again, I want to thank you for joining us and investing your time with us today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, go to iTunes and give us a shout out. You can also go to our website, www.contractorsecretweapon.com, and check out today's episode and leave us a comment in the bottom of the page. And if you haven't gotten your 15 secret weapon strategies to getting higher end customers, get it while you're at the website. Also, I want to thank again our sponsors for keeping this podcast alive, for your profit-making pleasure. And so go be profitable this week. Work smarter, not harder, and learn how to leverage your time and your knowledge so that you can be more profitable. Again, see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Contractor's Secret Weapon podcast with Dave Negri. We would love to hear your comments about this episode, so visit us online at www.contractorsecretweapon.com and let us hear your thoughts. If you were listening via iTunes, please leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive, the more other contractors will benefit from this show. Thank you, and see you next time here on the Contractor's Secret Weapon podcast.